from a completely different perspective. I would say to the average person in the street, look, forget the technology. Just forget it. Don't worry about what is the meaning of decentralization, all these buzzwords you're hearing now, crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin. It's still you and your family. It's talking about to be accountable, to participate. To participate in what exactly? To be accountable or be counted in what? That's what you have to think about. There are new technologies, trust me, that can do this in a new way, but those are the issues you have to look at. And the one thing you have to really understand now, and it's a point I brought out in my presentation, it's all about algorithms, folks. All these technologies are merely implementations in software and data of algorithms. It doesn't matter it's a blockchain network, it doesn't matter whether it's an accounting package, it doesn't matter whether it's a game on your smartphone, they're all software and data implementations of algorithms. And by the way, you, man in the street, algorithms are what actually are used by governments to govern you. They always have been. Politicians are fond of saying to govern is to choose, to govern is to make decisions. Software and data are decision systems, are information decision systems. That's what algorithms are. They come out of software, go-to statements, if-thens, nor, and not gates. That's all it is. It's the same thing. And there are studies biologically which say actually our brains actually operate algorithmically, rather like or, and not gates, if-then statements. They do it in a way that science doesn't quite understand yet, but that's how they operate. We all work by algorithms. It's a word that you've probably heard of a little bit, and it did come into a lot of prominence 2 years ago in the UK when suddenly algorithms on the front pages of even the tabloid newspapers, because it turned out that the Department of Education was using algorithms to decide how to allot scores for the A-levels of students because they couldn't actually go and take the exams because of COVID. And it turned out they were using a bit of a dodgy algorithm to do it. So suddenly, the whole issue of who's defining these algorithms, how are they being monitored, how are they being checked by experts, how do we decide, as you on the street, whether you like the algorithm? So that's the first point. So secondly, so that we all work by algorithms. Government is by algorithms, but they've never told us what are the algorithms by which they govern. I had a letter published in the Financial Times about a month ago, 2 months ago now, when we were having one of our many changes of government in the UK, and there was a big discussion about what was the new government, the then new government, I forget which one it was, going to do about fighting inflation. And I said, well, whatever the Treasury is going to do, it should publish its algorithm so that everybody can look at it and see whether it seems sensible to attack inflation in that way, as well as experts, economic experts, mathematics experts. And it was published in the Financial Times. So government by algorithm already happens. Government by algorithm as embodied in software is already happening. We've all had the experience now of going online to government websites, applying for things, having little bots talk to us, and getting a decision from the computer which is not objectionable to. There's no recourse to say, no, hang on a minute, you haven't taken into account the fact, because somebody's built a model of what you, the citizen, ought to fit into to answer the questions, to get your decision on behalf of the government, subject to that algorithm. You've not been consulted about how the algorithm has been designed and built, let alone the software, and whether indeed it's got any bugs in it, which usually it has. So that's the third point. Now we come to the killer. Unfortunately, Mr. Politician, those of you that are, you're not cognitively competent to deal with and handle and execute algorithms on behalf of you, the citizen. It is a fact of life that the people who are cognitively competent to understand right algorithms, to understand about phrase structure languages, mathematical logic, and can be trained in computer science and can write code are in the top 5 percentile of intelligence of the human race. It's a matter of fact. Those are not usually politicians. Trust me, they're not. I talk as a generality, and there are a few honorable exceptions. So I would say the new paradigm, folks, is for you as individual citizens to go out, and whenever you're talking to a politician, either by letter, on a program, by phone, in a forum, particularly when they're out canvassing, is to stand up and say, "Sir, madam, could you tell me, have you ever written a line of software code in your life?" Now, occasionally somebody will say yes, and then there are many other questions you can ask. But I can guarantee that 90% of the politicians that go up for election, in any sort of election, have never done that. And indeed, they would not be intellectually qualified to get onto a computer science course and to train to learn to write a computer language. This is a gift and a talent given to relatively few in the human race, and it is writing software is acknowledged to be the most complex thing that humans have invented to do for themselves. But that is what we are going to be governed by, and that is what we are going to rely on for all these new forms, including decentralization, including peer-to-peer networking. I've done that in a particular way with my app, and that has nothing to do with being connected to a network, a bit like Dr. Wright's presentation this morning, where he reminded us peer-to-peer means peer-to-peer, folks. It doesn't mean being connected to a mesh. I have an app that does exactly that, which is compliant with Sir Tim Berners-Lee's definition of Web 3.0, the private data pod concept. So that's what I would say. That's something the average citizen, the average folk can understand. They don't have to understand about the technology, but they can get this. They understand what an algorithm is. They understand how we take decisions, and they need to challenge politicians to say, are you really cognitively competent to deal with this new digital age? My vision is they're not, and I announce it here, but it's in my papers. I'm seriously thinking of launching a new political party, because here's the paradox. You have to launch a party to be able to change the system to get rid of political parties. But that's another issue. That's a practical way of doing it, called CARP, as I said in my, which is the Cyborg, Algorithm and Robot Party, which is to say we will have a manifesto which does say we will use algorithms. We will use algorithms for the people. We will have a new algorithmic compact with the people. So we have direct government by algorithms. Democracy is government of the people, by the people, for the people. Doesn't mention politicians, doesn't mention political parties. That's been a particular structure which has served us. As Winston Churchill said, representative parliamentary democracy is the worst form of government of all, but it's better than anything else that's been tried. It's time to try something new which reflects these new technologies.
That was a rich platter of excellent points raised, and my follow-up questions shortly will dovetail off of that, Dr. Castell. And Dr. Wright?
So the first thing I'll say is some of the things you said I agree with, but unfortunately, the human mind isn't algorithms. Silicon Valley wants to say it is. We have heuristics, but the cognitive process we have is an outer layer of consciousness over existing programs that happen through heuristics, etc. And those heuristics are quite often analog in nature, and analog doesn't feel
Can I just interrupt? An algorithm can be analog as well as digital. It doesn't have to be digital.
I mean, you can say that.
I used to program hybrid computers, which were part analog.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
And some of the things in sensor networks, etc., in electronics, especially older electronics,
Yeah.
basically form second-order derivative functions, etc.
Yeah.
But it's still not what I would determine to be an algorithm. A heuristic is different. So semantics, but I like semantics. The other part is going to the nature of free cities. If we think about cities, we have lots of attempts to make free cities. And the structure is how secession and all these other things go over time. The City of London, for instance, is a commercial municipality. It is a corporate structure. The way that that corporation is run, the voting rights, the ownership rights, etc., have been determined over time, and big chunks of it may be owned now by a few Russian oligarchs and a few other things like this because it's London. But that's all part of what happens in any cities. And if you look at Dubai is a new city. Singapore was a new city, now it is basically a city-state. And many of these things have been tried in history, but we don't learn that anymore. And I will say part of the problem isn't that we don't have enough people who are educated in government who know computer code. We have enough people probably doing algorithms and math in many areas, and that's not our issue. We don't have a lot of educated people anywhere. And education's not just learning how to code, that's vocational training. Education is understanding philosophy and understanding history and having a comprehensive range of knowledge. So I'll look at the fact that we have democracy in the past, and people love to bring up Athens. What they forget is that the 5,000 people committee of society at that point, ignoring that women didn't vote and a few other things like this, fell apart. It didn't work. And that democracy killed Socrates. And that democracy executed many people. And we had a pure democracy in France for a time. Robespierre took the lovely philosopher who was quoted in the last session, and he ran with all of that social contract idea. And Robespierre implemented a pure democracy, one of the masses of the majority, and the majority had the right to do anything. Anyone's head, if the majority said it was off, and the majority basically got to vote. So democracy in all of these things, and we the people is balanced by the Federalist Papers. It is not just we the people. The Constitution has many parts. The American Constitution goes into things determined under Madison with Federalist number 10, which basically describes why, from Plato, Aristotle, and other classical authors, why democracy itself is not a good thing, why America became a republic, to balance the rights not only of the majority but the minority, to balance the rights of the individual against the majority. And that's what we forget. If we have a pure democracy, remember, Hitler was voted in by a democracy. Remember, many times throughout history, genocides have been voted by democracies. Rwanda was executed because of a democracy and a rights of a majority. The majority aren't always right, and sometimes we need to constrain the mob.
Excellent points raised.